Alright everybody, I just did a review of the SCAR, but I wanted to do a review of the Elcan SpectreDR scope while I was at it. And I just wanted to kind of go over a rather fatal flaw with this scope that I am just shot past basically DoD testing. There's a design flaw which basically allows a pretty significant point of impact shift that you wouldn't be able to predict in the field. Essentially, there's a problem with the quick change, the lever system, to where you're going from 6x to 1.5x zoom, where essentially if the lever is spring action only. It doesn't actually have a specific notch to where it ends its travel at. It literally designed, it relies on a spring to bring it to its final resting spot. And the problem with that is if any grit gets in there at all, and since this is a battle rifle scope, you know, you're going to be digging through some dirt, let alone mud or anything else. You're going to get grit on your rifle. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it, especially in the current battle environments that we're finding ourselves in, with like a lot of the desert out there where you get that moon dust and it just kind of gets in everything. So this is a problem because if any dirt gets in the throw lever here, you can get a point of impact shift pretty significant, and you might not necessarily notice. I am not moving the camera right now. If you'll notice, the crosshairs are moving against the background of where the rifle is currently aimed at. I am doing nothing but adjusting that throw lever as to where the image is hitting. And you know, if it's at any point from there to there, if you get any grit in there and it doesn't come back to exactly where you would aim the rifle or zeroed the rifle at, which is in this case right here, if you had any grit and it changed it at all, you'd have no idea, especially in a combat situation, that your point of impact, your windage point of impact had changed significantly. I don't know if you can tell, but a shot changed from there to there. I mean, at 100 yards, you're talking several feet change. I mean, that's significant, especially, I mean, if you're doing some MOUT or CQB, what have you, and you're going in there, you kind of need to be able to hit what you're aiming at. And you know, if you're talking several feet at 100 yards, even at close distances, you know, even 30 feet, you might be talking 6 inches. And oh, you know, 6 inches, you know, it's a battle rifle, but 6 inches is a pretty significant when the average torso shot size you're talking about is about 18 inches. So, you know, that point of impact shift of 6 inches that you can't predict, because again, there is no specific detent point on here to tell you, hey, it is exactly where I put it last time I switched from my 6x to 1.5x or back, or even if you never change it, even if you only leave it in that setting and say, hey, I don't need the dual roll capabilities, I'm only going to use it in the 6x mode. It's just, there's no way of knowing if there's any grit in there that's not allowing it to return to the exact same spot every time. And just how the hell that can pass muster with the DoD is beyond me. It has a similar problem with the elevation as well. Using an external controls here, let me try to get at it. Same thing. If you see that gap there, if this rifle is against your body and you've got it on a sling or anything, this battery cap, if it gets against any of your molly webbing, anything like that, it can shift around. And while it's got a very heavy spring to return it back to zero, in the meantime, as it shifts around, you can see there's a gap that's created there. Again, if you got any dirt in there whatsoever, you're talking a massive, sorry about that, had a little bit of camera difficulties, but you're talking about a massive point of impact shift that you just cannot predict. So you can have point of impact shifts both horizontally and vertically of feet, measured in feet, that you would have no idea things had changed until you send that first or couple or half a dozen rounds downrange, especially in the battlefield conditions where, you know, you're just letting off mag after mag. It's just hard to recommend a scope like this. This is not a defect, or this is not a damaged product per se. This is an actual manufacturing flaw. It's not even a defect. It's built to correct tolerances, correct standards. And in a perfect bench rest shooting world, this is a fine scope. It does hold its zero decently. However, if you are in a less than ideal environment where you're using this weapon as a battlefield scope as it's intended to, and you start getting those point of impact shifts, I mean, you're cooked. You're dead. You're not hitting what you're aiming at, and there's just no two ways about that. So sorry if you guys have a hard-on for Elcan Spectres. But this is just a design flaw that it can't be tolerated. I could not recommend the scope whatsoever. Any of their line has the adjustable zoom basically capabilities. But anything with external adjustments like this is gonna have these problems. That's why I kind of prefer something like the ACOG or anything else, because of the fact that they don't have external controls. Everything's kind of inside the scope to where it's protected. But this thing, yeah, these external adjustment controls are just going to get you killed when it really matters most. So get yourself something reliable. Get yourself a Schmidt bender. Get yourself a Leupold, an ACOG. Get anything that has internal controls, and just stay away from anything that has these external controls like this, because sure, they're big and chunky and robust, but what the fuck does it matter if you're getting grit and stuff up in there and you're just changing where you're aiming at without actually changing where you're aiming at? Just going to get you killed or killed somebody else, and negligent discharges are your fault too. So do yourself a favor and skip them. Avoid this thing like the plague.